Welcome back, everybody, to the Annenberg Esports podcast, where myself, and my editor talk about esports news throughout the week. This week, we're welcoming Michael Ahn, Academy coach for CLG, coach for ASU League of Legends, and esports aficionado. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. How about you guys?
Doing all right, busy as always. I wanted to hop in and ask you about how you think you're gonna do in the first game for League of Legends for the Pack U thing.
To be entirely honest, we aren't even preparing specifically for Arizona State.
Mhm.
It's the preparation stage is going to be really minimal to say the least. Also, this has been our off week where we're just taking a break from everything because of all the chaos that is happening within us. So, but even with the lack of practice, I think the team's fundamentals are solid to the point that we shouldn't have any problems winning the game.
For sure, for sure. Do you think anyone in the Pack bracket will give you any troubles?
I think the only two teams that I'm really worried about is UCI and Cal, but everybody else seems to be far below our competition level.
Mhm. All right, for sure. What do you think makes you a
Not
cut above the rest?
actually, UCI is not even in Pac U. I was talking about the Western Conference. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Why do you think we're a cut above the rest? First is the obvious one is that our ranks are about 200 LP higher than most Pac U competition.
Mhm.
200 in some extreme cases have we're gonna have disparaging matches where we're gonna have a diamond 2 team on average versus the grandmasters. And
Yeah.
then also my team has been focusing heavily on relearning and then also applying major meta strategies that have been employed during the World Series and also during the later half of the LCS that I also happen to be a part of and also have to had the pleasure of absorbing a lot of information from. So I can say that the team is very well prepped for collegiate games and also for just big games as well. Our results have been relatively unfortunate because of our frequent encounters with Maryville University, whether it be their A team or their B team, which happens to be the number one and the number two team in the entire scene by
Mhm.
far. It's not even close. And I think off of the things that we did experience in scrims and off of the things that we did also experience in terms of our self-improvement, um, it should be a nice season for ASU.
For sure. You mentioned how your players are just on average better on the solo queue ladder. Did your players come in that way? Were your players applying for the varsity team as just grandmaster players, or did they take what they learned from practicing with the team and apply it to solo queue and climb from there?
I think the main thing for the most part is that my players were individually talented to start with.
Hmm.
I think that is something to identify. I did participate in some of their improvements, but it would be wrong for me to take credit for it. I think a lot of them are self-driven. A lot of them want to improve on their own way. The beautiful part about ASU is that none of these players are paid to stay here.
Hmm.
They are staying in their own volition. They're staying to um, just have fun and play League of Legends, and then also reach the competitive, high level competitiveness all together as a unit. And that type of solidarity is very hard to come by, especially in a lot of the collegiate scene. And seeing that kind of drive is definitely not caused by me, but was something that was already established in the environment, and I was very happy to see that.
Hmm. Are people what's the relative like uh what's the word? What ages are the people on the team? Like do you have freshmen, seniors? What's the lowdown?
So we have currently, I think we have 3 or 4 seniors, and we have a freshman. So
Hmm.
I've joined the team when there are a lot of the old guards here, and the new guy that did show up, Fire Theft, was also have competitive experience as an amateur in the amateur scene with joint playing teams in Supernova. So this is a pretty strong roster that I had the pleasure of working with for the past few months. And yeah, like I'm just really excited to go to CLO and also play in PAC-U because it should be a pretty good confidence boost for the guys that they deserve right now.
It seems like ASU is one of the few schools who doesn't have like a monetary incentive for esports. How do you think that's going to impact the program in the future? Or do you think that, this needs to happen where people need to take the initiative first before they get compensation?
I think in terms of the initiative that I've seen out of the players, a lot of it is in their own volition, as I have mentioned before. I think it is also worth noting that it's not only the players, but the staff members that hardly get paid, if not paid at all, for their work. And like I'm not the only one in the staff member. I'm actually the one that actually gets a stipend for my like work there. Whether it like whether the amount be like smaller, like it doesn't matter. The fact that I get paid like puts me in a different grade level than majority of the other staff that are in there because of their own volition, because they want to see this collegiate like their club improve. Because one of the problems that that the club has been having is that they've been struggling for a very long time to get varsity status, despite having probably the top three at the very least, if not top two, competitive like varsity League of Legends team in the Western Conference for a very long time. And they like the best example is that their support was literally picked up by Academy Breezy.
Hmm.
And with such pedigree, one would expect that the team would be like the school would be more inclined to accept them as their varsity team, but that has not happened, and the process is very slow. So I'm hoping that by trying to like encourage their competitive success, the team will be forced to be recognized by like no choice because publicity is that scary, especially in the collegiate scene because the scene is so small.
Mhm.
So like that's one of my goals with the team as well.
What
Because
do
I
you,
really think that they require support.
mhm. Why do you think there is such like a passionate esports and League of Legends focused like group at ASU specifically? Because we
Um,
see like so many programs where they do have these monetary incentives and whatnot. Even here, we don't have the like sort of passion that drives your program over at ASU.
we're talking about USC, huh?
Yeah, we're talking about USC.
So, um, sorry, I had to point that out. We don't need to beat around the bush. All three of us have been involved. So, um, I think first I'll showcase the good example that I've seen in ASU.
Mhm.
I think one of the major things that are present is the competitiveness that is not tied by monetary means, because collegiate in the current way that it stands will not make money. Sponsors are very well aware of that,
Mhm.
that are participating in the collegiate scene. Much of them are expecting a potential market return for the time that we actually graduate, and then we have expendable income, and then we're inclined to spend money then. That's as far as they're looking at when they are in these sponsoring for these type of events. They're not expecting people to buy headsets immediately when they like sponsor a collegiate. Come on, like that's not the way that it's going to work.
Yeah.
And it's and when even that has been established by the industry professionals, then like it is quite unrealistic for you to expect monetary compensation for players unless they are either of a very high level, or if they are like act directly contributing to the monetary gain of the organization itself. I think those two are the things that we have like people have to consider. And if those two check marks meet, then I think that will be like a really great benefit for the entirety of the program to actually keep those players in stipends. I think it doesn't, in the case of USC, it really doesn't work in either way,
Mhm.
because the sponsors that have been acquired, from what I'm aware, has been like dropped out. And another thing that I've also been aware of is that none of the players were really showcased by the org to even have them as publicity. Like we had a challenger jungler during my stay at USC.
Mhm.
And haven't had a single piece written about him ever. Like I've never seen it. I've never seen any like social media posts and ever shout outs to like a quite a blessing that you would have in a normally a highly competitive school. Because ASU, to keep in mind, is very easy to get in. The acceptance rate is significantly higher than USC. almost to like 6 to 5 times easier, statistically, like, at least. And which means that if you want to go into ASU, chances are you will get in. So with that out of the way, a lot of the players that want to like participate in this program simply just go there and then just play for the team because we're so well established. That is a sign that our team is well known and is on the map. People are going to ASU because of the esports. USC can never say that in at least 3 years.
Mhm.
Nobody's gonna go to USC because of their League of Legends team. Because one, most people don't know that we have a League of Legends team. Two is that they're not properly being led in a lot of ways that where they're not being publicly known or they're being led to perform like high peak performance. And lastly, the school doesn't care. They give us like the school gives monetary support, sure, but that's the very beginning to the journey.
Yeah.
So would you say that like because if people are going to ASU for League of Legends because they know about it and it's so good, but you're not getting any money for it, what's the incentive besides just being on a really good team? You know?
Um, the rule is that the prize money is not touched. It's a very specific rule that is established just to make sure that the players, when they perform well, are directly rewarded for their performance. That is something that we have the luxury of doing because we could win tournaments.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing is that like when it comes to just competitive viableness, a lot of the players are aware that the best type of experiences are done with players of your similar skill. And that's one of the reasons why Fire Theft was interested and indeed joined ASU Esports because he knew that he wouldn't be alone in the high ladder with our team. He is a challenger slash grandmaster player, currently masters grandmasters player, and like a lot of the other guys are around the same level as well. So he's definitely not alone in terms of like this pure skill, and he is a little bit ahead of a senior in terms of strategy and in terms of competitive experience because of his background. But that is like a cohesive environment that had the pleasure of walking into that a lot of schools don't have the luxury of because of the school's pedigree in that has already been established.
Do you think that ASU's ease of entry and a much lower price point than we've got like for attending USC versus ASU, do you think that adds to the draw of going to somewhere like ASU? Not only the like competitive pedigree that you guys have, but also it's easily attainable. There's well, I mean, not to bash on ASU, obviously, but statistically, it's easy. It's pretty easy to get into ASU, and for the people who really are doing it mainly to spark an esports career, do you think that's to ASU's advantage, like able to draw
Well,
these players?
if I wanted to have a career in USC, esports, then I would definitely not go to USC.
Naturally,
Uh,
but let's say avoiding other schools as well.
well, I think if you really are high up in the ladder, then ASU is probably not the one to go for, actually.
Hmm.
If you want to get into like a really good school that will boost you for the program and actually get you into the academy slot or the amateur slot, then schools like MU and HU are like the top two that you really want to get into. Everyone else is free game, to be honest. MU is like really the one that you want to try out for and get in. But the competition is very steep because not only are you competing with fellow other collegiate players, but you're also competing with like a top of amateur because the
Hmm.
benefits that you get for being an MU player are massive, not only because you get a degree along with your training with like really highly able and skilled coaches.
Hmm.
So you're going to improve there. Like that's a promise that they guarantee you. A lot of the coaches cannot promise that, um, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the thing that is really clear about the way that the team is being the way that ASU is being run is that we are at the end of the day not university supported,
Hmm.
which makes it a club sport and so that means that we have a lot of the things to prove for ourselves. While MU has already been university like recognized by their university and has been entirely backed up and supported upon. And they also have an entire infrastructure of management that takes care of all the intricacies and all the business side, along with their full-time coaching staff. So they're very much ahead in terms of infrastructure versus almost any other team currently in North America. and it's obviously showing. That's so obvious in
Mhm.
that case.
So would you say that? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah. I was just wondering because I don't necessarily expect you to know like how Maryville, like why their infrastructure is so good and like what kickstarted their push toward like success in esports. Like, do you have any information on that? Maybe from talking to anyone over at Maryville?
One of the major things is that they have a lot of the staff from E United, which is also a very prestigious, formerly a very prestigious amateur team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Infrastructure, like they adapted the things that they did there, and then just applied it and then built upon it. Like for people who are not may not be necessarily aware of how prestigious E United is, one of the prime players that came out of it that is currently in a very high profile team is Licorice from Cloud9.
Yeah.
He originated from it, and like they've also like scrimmed against academy teams quite frequently during their peak. So they pretty much got the high profile managements that has years of experience, and they just applied it over to the collegiate. And the collegiate at the time and currently is still very infantile.
So how do you think that or I guess not even do you think, how are people in like LCS Academy looking at college players right now? Because you said that going to Maryville will help you, but I don't know if that's true about every other school right now.
Well, almost every other school, we are doing scouting. I can't tell you exactly like how the process is going to be looking like
Yeah, of course.
because I simply don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like some teams have different approaches and like they may be like doing completely different things. But I think like Zoo has been very clear and very open that his players should be picked up for academy, and then that he is willing to spend significant amount of time talking with general managers and coaches to like find them a good place. And I think that is an initiative that not a lot of I don't see a lot of teams do other than them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because of a couple things, but mainly is that their players are indeed ready for the next level. I think a lot of their players like, can indeed stand a chance in the academy scene. Notably like their B mid laner Spyrax and also like their A team, their entire A team actually. And then I think their B team also has really good players too, but their A team has Niles Iconic, and then I think their mid laner is like slightly worse than Spyrax, which is their BT mid laner that I was very impressed with.
Mm-hmm.
Value is also really good. Shady's insane. Um, like all those players should at least have a chance at the tryouts at the very least, and see the way that things go from there.
You think that with the I mean it's not to say it's new like backlash that the LCS is getting for not scouting new talent, but definitely an increase this year with NA fans being disappointed in the constant failures that NA shows on the international stage. Do you think the LCS will like kind of kickstart and give new players more opportunities because all we really do is recycle old talent?
We'll have to see, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't speak for any one of them.
Of
I
course.
can't I can't even tell their agenda at all. What I would like to see is something along the line of a new policy being created for academy where reserve players or former LCS players that are being held in academy for the sake of being substituted
Mm-hmm.
is either discouraged or forbidden entirely by a specific regulation. One of the things that were widely discussed was either an age restriction, which I don't think is very fair, but more along the lines of the amount of years that they have spent in either LCS or academy that will bar them from staying in academy for longer if they go past that bar.
Mm-hmm.
Then that would leave plenty of room in academy where like guys like Soaz, guys like Smithy will no longer be able to participate in those games, and have extensive like players that are actually young and new that are going to be dominating the scene and then being coached by the academy team coaches for the next level of gameplay, which will be LCS.
Do you think that the dissolution of the OPL will take away too many spots from like new and upcoming talent trying to get into academy as LCS teams try and test out oceanic talent? Um, or do you think LCS is just kind of turn a blind eye to Oceania?
Well, I know that a lot of the Oceanic teams, like players, are under discussion with the LCS teams. I don't know how exactly it's going to work out.
Mhm.
It's not as a because it's not going to like. It sucks that what happened to their region, but what I know for a fact is that they're not going to get a job because they have nowhere else to go. That's not how easy the scene is. If you're bad at the game, then you're not going to get picked up. So I'm pretty sure the playing field is going to be equal, if anything,
Mhm.
and the competitive scene is going to most likely be dominated by like better players out of the regions rather than like them selectively having like an advantage over the other. So at least that's what I think. And like I don't know who are being picked up or who are even in discussion right now. Like the
Mhm.
coaches haven't even been like coaches for a lot of the teams are also in question as well. So it's definitely something that we're gonna be like keeping a lookout on. And I'm pretty sure this one's gonna be a pretty spicy off season, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, NA fans can definitely use a little bit of excitement after completely shitting the bed at Worlds.
Well, at a certain point we just have to recognize that you reap what you sow.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta measure expectations. I mean, it was exciting watching Fly take the game off of Top, TL take it off of Suning, but I mean, there were some highlights there, but always disappointed as usual. But were you excited or were you surprised by the outcome of last night's game, JDG versus Suning?
I was actually pretty surprised as well. I think it's mainly just preparation difference more than anything
Hmm.
from Suning and like from the end of Suning that I just gave them the win. Also, Bin played out of his mind. That was pretty impressive
Yeah.
because it seems like JDG really didn't have an answer to GP on 4-5, which was one of the major reasons why they lost. And he got away building Sapphire Crystal like for so long, which is usually considered taboo because of how volatile the matchup becomes.
Hmm.
Because the entire plan of that is that you get 700 gold and you recall and then you get Sheen and you just dominate the lane from that point on instead of going corrupting potion, which slows down your levels, like slows down your speed a good amount, but at the same time it is considered a more reliable path. And they just didn't have a answer for it, which it is what it is. The better team won. Like, it wasn't a strand of luck. Suning was a better team yesterday
Yeah,
or
yeah,
today.
yeah, for real. Ben was a real GP one trick, and I mean Huanfeng really carried this like early games for Suning. Because holy shit, he was playing out of his mind.
Yeah, he played well. I think JDG underperformed a lot as well.
Hmm.
Like
Agreed.
a good amount at the very least. Um, and they just seemed really lost in terms of the way that like the things that they needed to contest and the things that they needed to fight. And it is pretty, it is pretty characteristic of LPL teams to not understand the macro and the highest levels.
Hmm.
So that is the reason why I want Korean teams and LPL teams to play against each other because that would have been a League of Legends of two worlds like clashing against one another yet again. And I thought that LCK was ready for it this time around, and they would have convincingly beat all three of them. But we never get to find out until the finals, where Dom is just going to body anybody who's coming up.
How do you think Gen G is gonna match against G2?
I think Genji is going to win, just because Rascal is just playing better than Blunder right now, and
Mhm.
like that is the major contention for top, has been a major contention for G2. Their bot lane has been underperforming severely, and you really don't want to pair up perks against Ruler right now.
Yeah.
Not in this meta at the very least, it's going to be very brutal. Mid lane is like the only Joker card because BDD and Caps equally have been underperforming a good amount. I think Caps has been underperforming a good amount as well. Um, and if BDD is given his comfort picks, then he's at least going to be able to play like one, like at least he'd be able to fulfill his role. While you can't say the same about Caps just because of his playstyle. But I don't. Nobody knows. I expected this one to be the closest out of all the other ones. Majority of my predictions have been 3-1 and 3-0. This one's actually the one that I think is going to go all the way to like either at least 4 games, if not a best of 5.
Mhm.
Just because of how volatile G2 can be with their strategies and their drafts. Um, but if they don't nail themselves in the coffin, then it shouldn't be a 3-0. But if they lose the first game, then I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 3-0.
All right, for sure. Thanks for some of that world insight, Michael. Do you have any questions, Oliver?
Not about Worlds for sure,
Mhm.
but on the collegiate scene, just to bring it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry to switch so abruptly, but
No
uh,
problem.
regarding like the scene right now, it's pretty dominated by like schools that you wouldn't see in traditional sports like football and basketball. And we've got like Harrisburg doing incredibly well. We've got Maryville. Uh, there are more, but it's like it's a smaller college, smaller university dominated scene. Of course, you've got like Utah, you've got UCI, but in general, that's happening.
There's no Stanford.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't see any of that. No.
Yeah.
No USC. You've got no PSU. Yeah. Do you think that's sustainable, or the big schools with the big money, give it 10 years, they'll dominate the scene?
Depends on if they want to take esports seriously. If USC treated esports seriously, then I would not be working at ASU. That's all I'm saying.
So why did you join ASU? You can tell the TLDR, or you can do the long. It's up to you.
I think mainly what I talked about was like the group biggest contribution. I did extend my service to a lot of other teams, and I had a good amount of offers to choose from. So at that point, I had to decide on like which was the most ideal thing for me and the best team that I could help as well. Those are the two things that I was considering. And when I witnessed ASU scrim and when I saw their team, there were a couple of things that popped in mind. One was that they played very aggressively, which is my favorite style of teams. I'm very different from my Korean counterparts in a way that I really like accelerating the game, and I really like making the game very unpredictable. And like that's where my philosophies clash with a lot of other collegiate coaches, because a lot of their focus is on stability and consistency, which I personally believe that if the coach is of high competence, then that is the best way to do it. I think the best example of that is like Zoo. His entire philosophy is revolving around conciseness of strategy, but of course dense and rapport, and like relaying the crucial information to his players so they don't have to think about all the things in the world. So they have very crucial things to keep in mind. That has been his philosophy, and the results are there for everybody to see. But anyway, back to like my perspective, and that was a team that I immediately recognized that I would be able to apply like the things that I did learn in CLG, because my team in academy were also very aggressive. We really like pushing the tempo. We really loved fighting. And the way that we would win games is actually by making games so unpredictable, while we were completely comfortable with the position that we were in because we've been playing that type of game for the entire year. But the other side is just so uncomfortable because we're contesting everything. We're fighting for every single thing in the world. And then they're like, where are we supposed to stop? And then they're like, okay, like it looks like they're fighting. We're fighting them again, and we'll just keep beating them because we've been in those situations before. And I think that is like the thing that I'm trying to implement with ASU as well, because I think one of our early game is one of the most aggressive in the entire scene right now. The saying goes is, at least for me, is if I don't like my drafts involve that if I don't see a dive early on, then like they've done something wrong. And that's one major thing. Another thing was the thing that I talked about. I was very impressed by how initiated they were and how committed they were to the program, despite not even being offered a stipend or any direct benefits other than the ones that they earned themselves. And that is something that I really appreciated, and I think all the team members and the team staff are very committed to the success, which is also another thing that is hard to combine the scene, as it is very infantile. A lot of people don't really know what it entails to be a collegiate coach and a collegiate manager and a collegiate director. And I think the extensive experiences of people that have been there or have also been really helpful for me as well, because frankly, I did not know collegiate that much entering into this scene just now. But after like spending a couple months with them and just like absorbing all the information that I need, I could technically like talk about it for hours now. And that is my personal development. That is of benefit to me. And those things are the reasons why I chose ASU over other competitors, and also because they've been very receptive with me. That too.
Do you find that your coaching at, I know definitely your coaching at CLG helps your coaching in collegiate, but do you see the inverse as well? Does coaching collegiate kind of give you perspective a little bit into academy, or is it more just one-sided?
It's off the rust. That's what it is. I want to be of like full availability and also of full capability when the season starts again. I'm also like this also gives you an excuse to keep trend at the meta rather than an avid watcher, because if I'm watching, then I'm most likely going to be like analyzing the game in like a very face front. If you like, the greatest example is actually in my Twitch, where there's a drastic difference of my first impression and my prepared VOD reviews. I call them prepared because I actually watch them multiple times, take notes, and then crunch them down and then bring them to Spotlight. The major one that I did bring relatively recently was of Dawn 1 Gaming and JDG, the day one game, where I was I was just dissecting the intent and purposes of Dawn 1 that made me convinced that they're the best team in the world by the largest margins. Top esports never had those type of gameplays. And I'm more encouraged to do those type of things if I'm a coach, because that's something that I could immediately relay and then also have as my players watch them and also apply to their learning. But I'm really not going to be inclined to do that because that is a lot of work. So there's that benefit. And I think that's one of the benefits that I do enjoy from being a student and also being involved with collegiate, because I also have the luxury of like knowing these people that I could like coach and help these teams out with.
Absolutely. Do you see yourself staying in collegiate after you graduate, or is this a student gig?
We'll see. We never know what life is going to bring us. Like, it's if I get a really great offer from like a prestigious university that I would like to like involve myself with, then maybe I'll like take that job. If I really like the competitive side of League of Legends, I want to stay in the side of LCS, and if they also grant me an offer, and then maybe that could be an option for me as well. I think I think there's no really specific preference, as long as I'm able to be in a position where I'm able to like relay my knowledge and also in not only League of Legends but also in the esports development side, then I'll be a happy person.
Sounds good. Dylan, do you have anything else?
No, that was really insightful, Michael. Especially that last bit where you were talking about kind of how you coach and just kind of getting a little more insight onto what it takes to coach a collegiate team was really sick. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, like it's been pretty rough recently because of like COVID and all that. So like a lot of the tournaments happen on standstill, and some of the guys unfortunately are like having like this shit just happens because it's just like so intense and things like that. And like I think a lot of the teams happen like having a hold off, and a lot of the initiatives that we're supposed to be launching this year are like being on hiatus or they are currently unable. So it's relatively slow year for collegiate, and it's the start is slow ever since the HU Fest has been like culminated, and the only events that are currently happening are of upsurge. I don't really know because currently ASU is not participating in any events. We want to take this time for like players to actually like be on development mode underneath for scrims and things like that. So you guys should be excited for the game that is upcoming actually tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow.
And yeah, it'll be fun. Like PAC-U is just going to be like a little warm up for us probably, and then potentially a chance for us to like establish relationships with other teams that maybe benefit in the long run. Maybe like Oliver said, maybe in 10 years all the Pac-12 teams would have a decent league team.
Yeah, I mean that'll really be the
Hope
dream.
so,
But
man.
I'm really excited for this weekend because now that you're talking about your aggressive play style, casting that will be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it will be fun. Like it'll be fun for us at the very least. I don't know about the other guys.
On that note, thank you so much for coming in, Michael. Appreciate your time. Really looking forward to the game tomorrow and the future of ASU esports.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Michael.